Hello and welcome to the Two Man Booth, your weekly scheduled podcast on the crazy world of professional wrestling. With me, Jonathan.
And me, Adam. And as always, we will start with the news. And I think what we'll start with first this week is Kenny Omega. And his AEW contract apparently allows him to work New Japan Pro Wrestling. He announced this on the podcast he did with Dave Meltzer. And essentially said it's written into his contract that he can work New Japan, but whether they'll want him to work New Japan or not is as of yet unknown.
Yeah, that was a key point. He did say that he had specifically mentioned that it must be written into his contract, and that's obviously because Omega wants to do more with New Japan moving forward. But he did say that as of yet, he has no status regarding his future with New Japan. He just obviously wants to continue going. He said that if his last match in Japan, or with New Japan specifically, is against Tanahashi at the Dome, then he's very, very proud of that, but he wants there to be more. And I think for All Elite, this is a really important thing because we know that they will want a relationship with New Japan because that will help them in terms of competing in a way with WWE. So I think this is a promising bit of news and we'll see what happens with it because at the moment, it's just a statement that's on a contract. We don't know anything else yet.
And speaking of New Japan and contractual statuses, on the new Beggining show in Osaka, which we will cover in a little bit more detail later on, Kota Ibushi announced that he has signed a 2-year deal with New Japan Pro Wrestling. This means he's actually signed a contract with them, which completely changes the game with regards to Ibushi. He's been a guy who has been very strongly pushed in New Japan, but has always felt like he's had a glass ceiling. This now, for me, removes that glass ceiling.
Yeah, I totally agree. Ibushi's had a strange sort of relationship and contract situation for years and years and years with New Japan. Back when he was really starting to get really popular in Japan, he had a split contract where he originally came in as a freelancer through DDT and worked as an outsider in New Japan. He then signed like a split contract where he could work both equally as long as they didn't, work the same dates as each other. Obviously, he then went freelance and went to WWE and did the Cruiserweight Classic and then came back. But you're right, working as a freelancer. And it always felt like just because of that one pure little fact that he was a freelancer, not a contracted talent, they would always limit how much they would push him. This now means that he is absolutely 100% New Japan. And I think that's a great move for Ibushi. It's a great move for New Japan. And I think we both anticipate that Ibushi is going to be now pushed extremely strongly this year. And something like a finals in the G1 would not shock me this year.
And we also have, obviously, on the AEW thread, Double or Nothing sold out in less than no time this week. The pre-sale, which saw the majority of tickets go, sold out in between 25 and 30 minutes, depending on who you believe. And the general public sale sold out in about 5 minutes, but there was only a few hundred tickets left over for that one.
Yeah, this just shows that there's a genuine, massive, not a genuine appetite, like a massive appetite for this. We're all looking forward to Double or Nothing and seeing what they pull out of the bag. There's lots of rumours, there's lots of hearsay regarding this show, and there's the fact that it sold out so fast is nothing but good news for AEW. And we'll see where they go with this, but it's a massive, massive deal. I mean, you mentioned just before we started recording, what was the situation regarding like how much actual demand they had compared to WWE?
Well, from what I heard on various podcasts, it worked out through how many people had applied and the average amount of tickets being bought per user, that they were looking at around the 45,000 mark in terms of how many people they could have got into that building. And with it being the second one and it being a year after All In, well, not quite a year, but almost a year after All In, and all the things that go with it, with AEW actually being announced, I think we all expected there to be huge demand for this. The interesting one's going to be how they draw for the Jacksonville show.
Yeah, because as we mentioned a few episodes ago, Jacksonville is not known as a hotbed of wrestling or anything like that.
And it's not a tourist place either like Vegas is. Like, Vegas isn't a massive wrestling town, but it does have a vast tourism basis.
Where you might pick up some casual fans who are there for a weekend in Vegas or something like that. But yeah, we will see.
And on the last bit of news sort of we've got for AEW, in terms of the actual event. We're looking at StarCast and we're seeing that The Undertaker will be there. This one I didn't see coming.
Yeah, AEW are trying to go one-on-one with The Undertaker.
Okay, Teddy Long.
Yeah, this is obviously a big deal for WWE in terms of the fact that Undertaker is now actually doing something, a scheduled appearance, outside of their umbrella. The one thing that we must make very clear, although StarCast is happening on the weekend of Double or Nothing, StarCast itself is not sponsored by AEW, it's just running the same weekend, and those that are running StarCast have been very clear on Twitter to mention that, because this is not The Undertaker making an appearance for All Elite. It's not that at all. But at the same time, this is very interesting that Taker is making steps outside of WWE. It's surprising and very interesting.
And as we move on to WWE, although this piece of news does also concern AEW, we've heard that Batista is in negotiations with both entities. I think it's obviously more likely that he goes back to WWE because I think he's always talked about the fact that he wanted his final run in WWE and he wanted his final feud with Triple H. Now, whether Hunter's going to be cleared in time for Mania or not, they obviously set it up on SmackDown 1000 in a really cool angle. It's something I'd like to see, but obviously there's been rumours of AEW floating around, and Batista does have close relations with a few of the guys over there in terms of Cody and Jericho, etc.
Yeah, this is one of those where I don't think we can really say that much until we find out more. I think it's big for AEW just in purely by the fact that they're actually in the conversation. We said this with Brock, didn't we? That the fact that AEW are even in this conversation shows the momentum and the strengths of that company. So we will see, and we'll report more as we hear more.
And we also had a really bit of sad news this week as Pedro Morales has unfortunately passed away. He was a star in WWE and all over the United States, really, in the 60s, 70s and 80s. He has gone down probably as one of, if not the best draw in Madison Square Garden. I think he's got the best sellout rate in Madison Square Garden history. I know probably Bruno would be a top guy in terms of longevity, but Pedro really had a star run when he was WWF champion at the time. And although things didn't go his way in terms of his drawing power outside of New York wasn't great, he was a massive draw there. And he was a pretty big draw in the sort of Los Angeles and California area from what I can gather as well. It was never somebody I've seen a lot of, but it's always sad to hear something like a legend like this passing away.
Yeah, I must be honest. I'm not sure if I've ever actually seen a Pedro Morales match, but he was a massive part in sort of the early days, really, of back then it would have been still the WWF, if I'm correct.
That's why I was tripping over earlier when I was saying he was champion.
Yeah, but he was a big part of sort of the beginning of the momentum of that company, obviously becoming the utter juggernaut that it is today. So without Pedro, you maybe don't have Bruno and continuing on through them. So sad news. It's always, like you said, it's always sad whenever a legend dies.
And we also had the WWE Q4 earnings report that came out recently. We've got a bit more detail around it. So net profit for the full year was $99.6 million, which is supposedly the most profitable year in company history. Media profit was up, but live events and consumer products were down on last year. The most interesting thing to me was the rating side of things, and I don't know who put this piece of work together. It was just something I come across on the internet, that over the course of the year, Raw's ratings has fallen 17%. SmackDown's has fallen 16%, but cable in the United States has only fallen 4% over the same period.
So they're not with trend at all.
No, and the one thing that made the Fox deal happen was the fact that, yes, they were losing viewers, but they were losing them at a far slower rate than cable was. Now, only 6 months later, when you've got the full year figure to look at, it's a completely different story.
I think the main thing that comes out from this is that they are being not kept afloat or anything like that, but they're continuing to be successful off of money that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the actual quality of the product. Everything that does have something to do with quality of product is going down, and it may not be impacting them right now, but if that money that's coming in keeps them going at the rate that they are, if that money goes away and they have to rely on the money that is because of quality of product, they're not going to be in trouble, but at the same time, the situation's not going to be good for them in terms of their decline as a successful wrestling company.
And I think with that, we will move on to the decline. Monday Night Raw. I got my words mixed up there.
It's the same thing, really, isn't it?
So The show opened up this week with Triple H and Stephanie. They plugged Elimination Chamber and showed a Becky of Becky versus both of them from last week. Steph tries to introduce Becky again, but Becky comes out before she can. Again. And Hunter apologises for saying Becky faked her injury. She got checked out by her own doctors, and WWE's doctors have confirmed this. Her suspension is lifted, and the match is on for WrestleMania. Steph reiterates this point and says it could be one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history if Becky can do one thing. Apologise.
This is only going to get worse as we talk about it more. I actually didn't mind this segment as a stand-alone segment. What I do have problems with is what we'll come on to much, much later. But the segment as a whole was fine. It was entertaining. It set up the show. Absolutely fine.
Yeah, so Becky tells Steph to shut her face. She doesn't trust them or her old man. They've been screwing people for decades. Nobody is stealing her opportunity. She'll fight them all, but if she has to apologise, hell no. Steph and Becky get in each other's faces. Hunter separates them and tells Becky to put her pride aside and make the apology. Will she go to Mania, fight Ronda and show the world she's the man, or will she throw it all away? The choice is hers, and she has till the end of the night to decide. Like you said, I think this was a great opening segment, and actually I'm looking at my notes, and at this point I said, intrigued to see where they go with this. I was not by the end of the show.
I'm intrigued in all of the wrong ways, but I don't want to say anything else because I've kind of already covered my opinions on this segment. Let's keep going.
So we then went to a triple threat women's tag team match, which would decide the person that would be first, or the people that would be first in the Elimination Chamber on Sunday. It was Nia Jax and Tamina against Liv Morgan, Sarah Logan, and Sasha Banks and Bayley. Sasha slapped Nia and then tagged out immediately. They tried to tell the story of smart babyfaces, which is new, but while Corey is waxing lyrical about how smart Sasha and Bayley are being by not tagging in, Bayley tags in. Ruby takes Sasha out on the outside with the softest looking tackle into the barricade ever done, and Logan hits a running knee that gets nowhere near Sasha, so I was guessing at this point Sasha wasn't fully cleared. We have heard since that she is cleared for Sunday, so that's good. The medical staff led Sasha away. Bayley played the babyface in peril for a while, but then randomly the Riot Squad were happy to tag in and help her out. It was really bizarre. It turns into a standard nothing happening tag match for a while until Bayley runs wild on everyone towards the end, with the crowd being super into Bayley actually. She hits the Bayley to belly on Liv, but Tamina breaks it up. She grabs Liv and allows Nia to tag in. Nia hits a Samoan drop on Bayley for the win. I think having Bayley and Sasha start the chamber is a smart decision. Get your best workers in for the longest period of time. It would also be a hell of an underdog babyface story if they win from there, which I think they should.
Yeah, I agree. I think if they're going to go with Bayley and Sasha, that'll make them look as great as possible. I agree that it was sort of like a nothing happening match. It really wasn't important to me as I was watching Monday Night Raw, but it's noticeable that Bayley and Sasha are getting more and more over, mainly partly because of what happened with Ronda in terms of Sasha, but Bayley's been getting more and more over as the weeks go on.
I think almost the fact that Sasha has been legitimately injured but Bayley's had to work all of their tag matches has really helped.
To the point where they're now sort of at the same level.
Yeah.
Whatever they have planned for them, I just really, really hope it's not a heel turn. I actually think that at the moment they're getting popular, they should just kind of run with it for now. But I hope they're winning on Sunday. I really hope they're winning, but we'll see. Again, nothing happening match. But the one thing I will mention before we move on, I loved the name that they've given to Nia and Tamina. Samoan Slaughterhouse. That's an awesome name. I just wish it wasn't them two that had that cool name.
So Elias begins to play in the ring, but we cut backstage where Finn Balor approaches Becky. He says sometimes it's better to bide your time, just like he's going to when he takes the Intercontinental Championship from Bobby Lashley. Becky wonders if he thinks she should apologise. He's not going to tell her what to do, but he's seen pride get the better of many a man. Don't let it get the better of the man. Becky thanks him and tells him his abs are still awesome.
His abs are really awesome, to be honest. I'm very jealous. Yeah, it felt like a bit of a tenuous link a little bit, this segment. But I think it was just a case of we need to keep Becky on the show.
You know what I like, though? I like the idea of babyfaces talking to each other backstage.
You mean good people have friends?
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, it felt like a genuine human sort of just interaction with your co-worker who's going through something.
And those that know Becky's backstory know that Becky and Finn do have a relationship.
Well, Finn trained her.
Exactly, so yeah. People who know that stuff.
So Elias is introduced again. Then a Seth Rollins video package plays showcasing his past year.
This was really weird.
Yeah.
Interruption City.
And then Elias is introduced again, and the Lucha House Party interrupt. I guess this is a new thing. I don't know where they're going with it. We then go to break. That entire segment just consisted of Elias being constantly interrupted. We get back from break. Elias is angry about the interruptions. The Lucha House Party want to walk with Elias. Elias sings an awesome song ragging on Grand Rapids, Michigan. The Lucha House Party don't like it and think they can do better. Kalisto plays some guitar, and Elias is impressed. He wants to do a duet. I think we could all see where this was going. Kalisto accepted. Elias grabbed his other guitar and smashed it over Kalisto before running away as quickly as humanly possible.
I'm just going to say just this happened.
Yeah.
I wish they would... They shouldn't have turned Elias heel. He should have stayed a babyface. They're doing all the wrong things with him. Just end it, please. Stop it. Turn him back babyface because no one wants to boo him anymore.
He's still entertaining, though.
Always will be.
And then next we had McIntyre versus Balor. Now, there's a lot of things that made me angry on this show, but this nothing happening segment that, when we get to the end of it, ends up lasting for about 50 years.
It went like through two ad breaks.
3 matches in total. It was just like, could you have just screamed filler more than this?
It was like they had a bunch of people that didn't have much on at that time. They had to fill time and they just plugged it in. It was dreadful and it felt like it took forever.
So Lashley was at ringside and got involved almost immediately. It was a nothing happening match until Lashley got involved again, leading to Finn taking he and Leo Rush out with a baseball slide. He hit a sling blade and shotgun dropkick on McIntyre before heading to the top. Before he could hit the coup de grace, Lashley pushed him off the top for the DQ. Lashley and McIntyre double-teamed Balor until Angle made the save, taking out everyone. He had Rush in an ankle lock, but Corbin came out and attacked him from behind. The heels beat Angle down until Braun came out and took out Drew and Lashley. He went for a running power slam, but Drew pulled Corbin out.
Yeah, I don't have very much to add. I really don't. I very much disliked the vast majority of this.
So Teddy Long made another appearance, and back from break, we got a 6-man tag team match play. Angle hit the Angle Slam on McIntyre, but Baron broke up the pin. Not a DQ this week, just for those of you keeping score. Pretty dull match, clearly a time filler like we said earlier. Balor fought out of a heat segment, but the heels had taken out Strowman and Angle. Lashley went for a spear, but Balor moved. He took out Corbin and McIntyre and went for the coup de grace. A distraction allowed Lashley to take out Balor and pin Finn, even though Balor's foot was on the rope. Another ref came out to explain this. Where was this ref when the Revival were being screwed every week?
Incompetent referees. It's a running theme. It's been for weeks.
But they have no consistency because this time it was overturned. So the match is restarted. Balor eventually gets a hot tag to Strowman, who runs wild. Lashley went for a spear, but Strowman caught him for a running power slam. Tag to Balor, and the coup de grace picks up the win. This went forever through 3 different matches, and whatever.
It dragged so much. I think I had a birthday as I was watching this whole segment. It was awful. But in the end, the right guy won. But I have no desire to see the match that I'm going to see on Sunday.
Yeah. We then had a Kevin Owens hype video. It was a babyface type promo. He's coming back in a month. He sucks at bowling.
Yeah, he sucks at bowling, but man, I really got I really thought he was coming back babyface. It felt like it. He was there with his family. There was nothing about it that screamed heel. I can't wait for him to come back and the Kevin Owens show can start again.
The only thing I didn't like about it, and you know what, this segment may have worked for somebody else, but I'm looking at it going, and I'm the biggest Kevin Owens fan in the world. You know that. You know how much I was happy when he won the Ring of Honor World title some years back. I've loved him for years, but he doesn't look like your prototypical wrestler. He just looks like an everyday man. And they're having him do something where he looks like he's just an everyday man who sucks at bowling. This may have worked for somebody who was like a gleaming superstar. But for somebody like Owens, I think it just made him look like a bit of a loser.
It's like the anti-Mr. Perfect.
I never really thought about it like that, but yeah, it does.
That would be you know what? That would be awesome. Someone needs to do that at some point. Do all of the stuff that Perfect did.
But badly.
But do it wrong. That would be awesome.
Wouldn't make for a nice comedy gimmick. Anyway, our rude interviewer from last week returned and tried to interview Becky, but Becky blew her off. We then came out with Nikki Cross versus Ruby Riott. It was a fine match, nothing special. In the middle of the match, we saw Ronda confront Becky backstage, way to make the girls in the ring look important. Ronda wanted Becky to man up and apologise. When we got back to the match, they go back and forth until Ruby cuts Nikki off as she went up top before hitting the ride kick for the win. Don't know why they had to beat Nikki here. Obviously Ruby needed a win, but did it have to be against Nikki?
Yeah, it was actually a fairly competitive match, so I didn't have any problem with that. Like, Ruby obviously needs a little bit of momentum going into her challenge against Ronda, so I had no problem in her getting a fairly convincing win over someone fairly high up on Raw. I just really didn't think it should be Nikki. Nikki's just come on to Raw. We still haven't decided whether she's on SmackDown or Raw yet, and she really needs some momentum just to get her going, so I really thought this was a poor choice, but it was a competitive match, so it's not humongously offensive to me or anything like that. We just have to go somewhere with Nikki.
So a huge burn it down chant greets Seth Rollins. He talks about his year, he talks about taking 6 F5s and still being there. He can beat Brock Lesnar. Heyman interrupted and said Brock is not here. He puts over Rollins but says he's on a suicide mission and Rollins will be the architect of his own downfall. And that's not a prediction, that's a spoiler. Seth doesn't care. He will be a martyr. He will sacrifice everything. He will sell his soul to the devil. He will burn in hell if that's what it takes to stop Brock at Mania. And that's not a prediction. That's a spoiler. I thought this was a really awesome promo from both guys. But I really thought Seth delivered here.
Yeah, I thought this was a really strong promo. It built more towards WrestleMania than anything that they have done with Rollins since the Rumble, including the stupid 6 F5s thing. I thought this was a really strong promo, like I said. There was some very interesting lines in there.
Yeah, like selling his soul to the devil and burning in hell.
Yeah, like that. I mean, I don't think that we need to read too much into that, but if you were going to be really, like, in depth, selling your soul to the devil's like the most, like, heel turn thing in the world. I don't think it's going there. I just think it's one of those things where we're just emphasising how much Rollins will do anything to get that title off Brock.
And then we had a really weird moment. Dean Ambrose came down to the ring. He took the mic from Seth and he said, "Slay the Beast."
Yeah, I think they've been trying. I mean, obviously, we know Ambrose is leaving, but I think even before that announcement came, I think they were trying to sell the idea that there's still a friendship or a brotherhood there. It's just two brothers who are fighting at the moment. I think that's kind of what they're trying to go with now.
I wish they could just be consistent with what they're saying, because that was not the storyline they were telling 2 months prior.
No, I think that is now what they're telling.
So we then had Dean Ambrose versus EC3. Ambrose won with a small package in a short match that was just kind of there. Yay, 50-50 booking. Also, it may have just been me, but did EC3 turn heel and I missed it?
I'm not sure.
You know, he worked the match as a heel.
Yeah.
He did a few heelish things. It's difficult to read. You know, you used to be able to read who was a heel just by listening to the commentators, because if JR was on his side, he was definitely a babyface. If the King was on his side, he was definitely a heel.
But now we have no idea.
They're just such a mess out there that I wasn't sure whether the fact that Corey was praising him was a babyface thing or a heel thing.
I mean, I think EC3 is better as a heel, so I think that's the way they should go with it anyway. So if that's what they decide to do, good.
So Alexa approached Becky backstage. She doesn't want Becky to apologise. Becky sees through her lack of sincerity and says if she apologises, the only thing she'll be selling out is WrestleMania. I thought this was fine. Like you said earlier, they had to find a way to just keep Becky on the show, and I thought this worked for both the characters, because it definitely fit into Alexa's character, and Becky's line about her not selling out, just selling out WrestleMania was really cool.
Yeah, this was fine, but it was filler. But it worked, and it filled in time, and it kept your mind on the fact that Becky's announcement, or whatever it was going to be, was coming up.
So we then had the Raw Tag Team Championship match between The Revival and champions Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. I thought this was actually going to take place at the Elimination Chamber. It would have also been nice if they'd actually plugged this, even if they just plugged it at the start of the show or somewhere during the show. We didn't know this Tag Team Championship match was taking place until the Tag Team Champions came out and they told us there would be a Tag Team Championship match after the break. I mean, you know, they're trying to sell this idea to the Revival that they're going to make the tag team division more important. That's supposedly how they're trying to keep them happy. And yet, you don't announce the tag team championship match, in which we're going to see in a minute the tag team titles change hands, and you don't announce it until the match takes place?
Because supposedly, one of the reasons why Revival are so unhappy, it's not solely because they are not being pushed. They're annoyed because they feel like the tag team division on Raw as a whole is vastly mistreated. And to be honest, when you look at things now, the tag team division on Raw is in the spot that the Divas, in quotation marks, that the Divas used to be in. They're in that bathroom break spot now before the main event segment.
So everyone in this match is so good, like really, really good. And Gable is great at everything except punching. Not Naomi or Shane level of bad, but can somebody get Jeff Jarrett to teach him how to punch properly?
That's the only weakness to his game, though.
It really is. The crowd is absolutely dead for this, which is a shame. There was some nice heel work to prevent the hot tag by the Revival. After the second ad break, Gable finally gets to Rude for the hot tag. He hits a picture-perfect spinebuster for a nice near fall. And then a gory special bulldog combo from the Revival got a nice near fall before Gable and Rude hit an insanely beautiful blockbuster German suplex combo. The finish came when Gable jumped backwards off the middle rope for a crossbody but got caught with a shatter machine, which was a really nice finish. New tag champs, and the one line of commentary that I liked all night was Corey Graves repeating his yes, yes, a thousand times yes from the Revival's debut on the main roster when they won this match. They cut a really good promo backstage as well, just a fired up They came across as babyfaces, actually.
Yeah, it came across massively babyface.
But it was a really good promo, and you know what? Top guys, out.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Finally, Revival are tag champs. The belts that they've deserved pretty much for years and years and years now, since they came up to the main roster. I really enjoyed this match. It grew on me slowly. It did grow on the crowd a little bit.
It did, yeah.
Because by the end they were chanting, "This is awesome." You're right, all four guys are awesome. Revival deserve this. They more than deserve this. If it was me, I'd have them have a massively long title reign just to solidify them, but as we mentioned last week, I'm not sure they're going with that. However, this was a good move, and we did say last week that Revival needed to win because they'd had so many chances. Right decision, and the top guys are finally the top guys in that division, and it's about time.
They could always book them against Dean Errico.
I'd love to see that. It is, honestly, it's about time. Revival have deserved this for so long, and they actually said that. They said that on Raw, and you're right, the backstage promo came across as really babyface, but it's well deserved because they're the best tag team on the planet. And the Shatter Machine was beautiful.
So Becky, Hunter and Steph all came out for the main event segment. Steph and Hunter want their apology. Becky says if there are only two little words keeping her away from WrestleMania, then as she pauses, the crowd chants, "Suck it." Becky apologises, and at this point in my notes I've literally wrote, "Are you kidding me?" The crowd boos, naturally. God, this is such a mistake. I can't put into words how big a mistake this is. Can you imagine Steve Austin apologising to Vince McMahon? Can you imagine CM Punk apologising to Vince McMahon?
This is huge.
It's stupid.
This is a really big mistake because in the immediate aftermath, first off, the crowd booed
when she apologised.
But then they also booed when she shook their hands. She's an anti-authority figure. Why are they having her first off go, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then shake the hands of the people that she's openly said that she does not trust? You're right, and I said this, didn't I, as soon as I saw it. Austin would never have done that. Austin would never, ever have apologised to Vince. He'd have sooner lost his job than apologise to Vince back in 1999.
And we'll come on to the rest of the segment in a second, but what did I say to you tonight when we were talking about this angle before we came on the air? I said they could have achieved exactly the same outcome without having Becky apologise. All she had to do was go out there, refuse to apologise, Vince comes out and suspends her for 60 days like he's going to, and then end up being forced to put Becky in the match when she just continually turns up at live events, keeps attacking people, and you could just have Ronda say, "I'm going to leave if you don't give me Becky Lynch at WrestleMania." Their hand is forced because Ronda Rousey is one of their biggest stars, so they put Becky Lynch in that match. But as an addendum, if you still want to go down the three-way route, Vince goes, "The only way I agree to this is if we put Charlotte Flair in the match as well." And there you go. You've got the same conclusion. You're still working the angle that the fans think Charlotte's the chosen one, not Becky. So you're still preying on that. You still get your three-way. But you don't have Becky Lynch apologise. She should not be apologising. It is such a huge mistake, and it really hurts our character, and I just hope it doesn't hurt our overness going forward.
Yeah, I've been in nothing but agreement with how they've booked her so far up until this. I think they've done all the right things, and then they ruined it. I think they booked themselves into a corner a little bit with the apology thing that they were going for. They didn't have to do it. There were plenty of other opportunities and things they could have booked. But you're totally right. If they were going to do that, that works absolutely fine, and you get the same outcome in the same scenario without potentially ruining Becky Lynch's character. Now, we have to wait and see what happens. Hopefully this does not impact Becky Lynch's overness, but I can't overstate how much of a mistake this was. And in the sort of the minute after she apologised, the crowd was not cheering for her as much. They really weren't, and it felt odd to not have her get the reaction that she has been getting for months and months and months now.
So now that we've got our rant out the way, we'll just sum up the rest of the segment. Becky started cutting a promo on Ronda, who interrupted. Then Vince came out and he said Becky has a bad attitude because she's not the man, he is. He suspends Becky for 60 days, which means her suspension runs out just after Mania, which means they need a replacement, so he introduces Charlotte Flair. He raises Charlotte's hand and tells Ronda to get used to that image because it's what she's going to see at WrestleMania. This show had some highs and some very, very lows, and as usual was an absolute slog to get through.
Yeah, it was a mixed bag. It was up and it was down. There was more ups than I think there was last week, but at the same time there was just as many lows, and you're right.
And you know what? Arguably the lows were worse than last week as well, in terms of stuff like the Becky thing.
Yeah, in terms of just horrific booking that has a massive impact. But just like you said, 3 hours is a lot to get through in general, and when it's so up and down like this, man, it's such a slog.
And speaking of it being a slog, Raw viewership. 2.46 million this week, down from last week's 2.51, and ties as the worst viewed Raw of the year. Viewers steadily tuned out throughout the show as usual, and it just goes to show as well, nobody is a draw anymore. Becky is the most over person they've got, and even she, with a like show-long storyline where the end is going to come in the main event, viewers still turned away. Like, it's got to the point now where they genuinely have no draws left.
It's one of those things, isn't it? A long time ago, the argument was because Austin left and because Rock left and because Brock left, Vince stopped making individual stars and made the company the draw. The worrying thing is that it seems like the company is now no longer the draw that it used to be. And now because you don't have any stars anymore, you're suffering.
So with that, I think we'll move on to SmackDown. We got a graphic at the start of the show honouring Pedro Morales, and we opened with a recap of the events from last night's Raw, followed by Charlotte coming out for a promo. I actually thought she cut one hell of a promo here. Arguably, I think it was probably the best one I've ever heard her cut in her entire career. She railed on the crowd, mocked Becky, and says Vince didn't pick her because she's his favourite, but because she is the backbone of the women's division, a franchise player, and you don't give the biggest match of the year to a flash in the pan like Becky Lynch. She dedicates her upcoming Mania victory to her best friend Becky. She also says she will be in the front row for Ronda's defense at Elimination Chamber, and maybe she'll have a new opponent for WrestleMania. Really, really good promo. Charlotte played the crowd perfectly like a violin, and she's probably going to be the biggest heel in the match, despite the fact that people have just completely turned against Ronda. Charlotte's work's been so good, I think she's going to be the biggest heel in the match.
Yeah, Charlotte's really getting this heel character that she's doing. She's been fantastic since she turned heel, and she's just continuing on with that good work. Great heel promo, great opening at the show, and like most SmackDowns, it started off hot.
And then we got a sad announcement that Mustafa Ali is out of the Elimination Chamber match and tonight's gauntlet. He will be replaced by a member of the New Day. We will come to that later. So we got the same match we had last week, the awful triple threat tag match we had that last week between Fabulous Glow, Fire and Desire and the Iconics.
The match so good you had to see it twice.
Yeah, the losing team will enter the chamber first, just like the Raw match. Clearly they hadn't come up with that plan last week when they had the exact same match. Peyton tagged out immediately and the Iconics never actually get in this match, successfully telling the story that Raw tried to tell but seemingly forgot 2 minutes in. The match was not good, but it was far better than last week. Naomi threw forearms this week instead of punches, which is a marked improvement. She picked up the win after hitting Mandy with a nice-looking split-legged moonsault. Probably a smart decision, as Mandy and Sonya are probably the second-best tag team in the chamber, which is kind of poor showing that they're the second-best tag team, but they probably are.
Do you mean both of them or one of them?
I don't think Mandy's as bad as a lot of people think she is. She's still quite green.
Ric Flair, she in?
No, but none of the people in this match are. She's far better than the Iconics are in the ring. I think she's better than Carmella in the ring. I think she's more consistent than Naomi. Naomi's very athletic, but she just has no idea how to put a match together. She's got like less psychology than Jack Evans in 2005. Do you know what I mean? So I do think Mandy and Sonya as a team are probably the second best team in ring.
The main thing is that match is going to be rough, and it's going to
really
go.
is.
It's going to go long as well because it has to.
They just need to hope Sasha and Bayley can work some miracles when they're in there. So the Iconics attack Carmella and Naomi post-match to get the heat. I thought the Iconics came off as smart here. Really good work for everything. We then had all three Raw teams cut promos about Elimination Chamber. Both Bayley's and the Riot Squad's promos were good. Nia and Tamina's was awful, the highlight being Tamina continually talking over Nia, so we actually couldn't hear what either was saying. How did that make it to TV?
No idea. Absolutely no idea. I'm astounded how some of these things even make it into writing, never mind TV.
We then got Mustafa Ali cutting a great promo in snowy Chicago. He's out of the Chamber match, but no one will keep him down, and he will be back. It was a great babyface promo. I love these Ali promos, and for some reason the snowy Chicago setting just made it even better.
Yeah, you've nicked my point actually. I always love Mustafa Ali's sort of mobile phone almost promos that he cuts. They look so authentic and so real, and the exact kind of thing that Mustafa Ali would do. He started doing them in 205 Live and he's continued them in SmackDown, and I'm really, really glad that he has. It's a real shame that he is out of the match because the rumours are what happens later, which we won't spoil yet, but what happens later on was meant to be what he was going to have as well, which would have really made him and really got him a lot more over as well. But great promo. His promos are always fantastic. He's a great babyface and a main event guy in the future.
Next we had McMiz TV. They plug Miz's reality show and Shane's upcoming appearance on NCIS LA. They bring out the Usos. They've apparently been in 53 title matches, which I thought was actually quite a cool statistic from Tom Phillips. Puts over how the longevity of the Usos and how successful they've been. The Usos laugh at the idea of Miz and Shane being the best tag team on the planet. They play the tag team test. Shane gets the cheap pop by mentioning a local baseball team. They cut fired up promos back and forth until Shane says they'll see them Sunday. He and Miz clink titles, but the Usos lay them out with super kicks. Both teams cut great promos here, and although I'm not a fan of the Miz and Shane team, this actually made me want to see the match.
Yeah, I think considering what I actually expected this segment to be like, it actually wasn't that bad. It certainly wasn't anything that I was gripped to, but considering what we thought it was actually going to be when we talked about this last week, it was fine. And the Usos are awesome, so it was really cool to see them come out of the segment on top. But we'll see what happens. I have a feeling they're losing anyway, because I think McMiz or whatever they're going to be called, Shane and Miz,
the best tag team in the world.
Oh yeah, of course, I forgot that was the name. I think they're going to be champs going into Mania anyway.
So then Daniel Bryan came out. He knows a lot of people want him to lose his title at Elimination Chamber, but they are lying to themselves.
We don't.
He does not want to be in the match, but his sacrifice is necessary. The New Day then came out and all teased being in the match before Kofi steps up. So we then got the gauntlet match, which started with Kofi and Bryan. The winner of this gauntlet gets to be the final entrant in the Chamber on Sunday. This was an awesome mini-match. Rowan got involved and the New Day took him out in revenge, but the referee threw them out for this. Rowan then got involved again, and this time the referee sent him away from ringside. Bryan rolled Kofi back into the ring and went for the Busaiku knee, but Kofi caught him with Trouble in Paradise for the elimination. Really fun mini-match.
Yeah, really, really good. I mean, I'm stunned that Kofi and Bryan had a good match together. Who knew?
Next out was Jeff Hardy. It was a much shorter match between him and Kofi. Kofi went for the Trouble in Paradise. Jeff ducked and went for a lariat, but Kofi ducked and hit the SOS for the elimination. This was fine. It was very short, but they worked well while they were there together.
Yeah, and just continuing Kofi's story. This was the story of this match, and we'll continue on, and we'll talk more about that as we get later into the match.
So we then had Kofi and Samoa Joe. This was actually probably the weakest segment of the entire match, but they were clearly going to make Kofi look awesome here. There was lots of rest holds, and the end came as Joe went for a coquina clutch, but Kofi ran up the turnbuckle into a pin for the elimination a la Bret Hart. Joe got his heat back after the match, beating down Kofi and locking on a coquina clutch until AJ came down and beat Joe down, forcing Joe to retreat.
Yeah, I actually loved that finish as well. I love that Bret Hart finish. So to see it again was really cool because it's not done very often now, is it? And it was great to see. And Joe got his heat back, so good booking. And then AJ comes out and looks like a really good babyface. So no complaints.
So when we got back from break, we got some more awesome babyface booking, as not only did AJ save Kofi, but he does not want the match. He's waited for him to get up, but he knows Kofi is in no shape to continue and wants the ref to end things. Kofi is having none of it though, and he forces AJ's hand by attacking him. They work a super fun back and forth match. AJ hit a sick looking STO style backbreaker in here. The crowd was solidly behind Kofi. They made him look really great on this show. And Kofi barely beats the count out and hangs on when AJ goes for a Super Hurricane Rana. He hits a high fly floor to a bent over AJ's back, but AJ kicks out at 2. Kofi goes for the SOS again, but AJ counters into the calf killer and Kofi taps. AJ checks on Kofi until the New Day comes down and help him to the back.
Yeah, this made AJ look great because AJ looked like a great babyface. And wow, did this make Kofi Kingston look amazing. He had a great story, and the way that he was written out of the match did not take away from the amount of time that he was in it. Supposedly, I can't remember who reported this. It's not from Meltzer, as far as I believe, but I saw it on Twitter, and if I remember who did it, I'll mention it later in the show. But it's been reported that supposedly Kofi has gained a lot of momentum, both in terms of the crowd and backstage as a result of his performance. And whilst it's cool for Kofi, part of me thinks it's really a shame that Mustafa Ali did not get this.
I want to say it was WrestleVotes on Twitter that reported that, by the way.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I couldn't quite remember. I didn't want to give false credit or anything like that because it wasn't me.
So Randy Orton's music hits and AJ gets his game face on. He's waiting for Orton, but Randy comes through the crowd, hits an RKO for the pin, the win, and he will be the final entrant at Elimination Chamber.
I think this is largely done because AJ is not 100% yet, isn't he? He's not quite there.
I know he's not been sort of in the best shape, but I don't know what shape he's in at the minute, so I'm not sure in terms of how 100% or not he was. But obviously I think they were just looking for a cool moment to end the show, to be honest, when Randy coming out of the crowd and RKO, as soon as the camera panned and sort of closed up on AJ's face, I knew exactly what was coming, but it was still a cool moment. The crowd went nuts and it was a fine way to end SmackDown and build to the Chamber match.
AJ didn't know what was coming, certainly.
Well, maybe Randy won't want none at Elimination Chamber.
No one wants none.
No. It was another fun SmackDown, and the Gauntlet match, whilst not as good as the one from Raw around this time last year, was still a ton of fun.
Yeah, they did the same thing though with Kofi as they did with Rollins. Just, that always makes someone look awesome. It's really difficult to do that and not have the crowd go like, man, it's like the Iron Man thing. It comes across as awesome, and it's a great way to get someone over. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how they book Kofi on Sunday, because if he's going to get more and more over, like, are they going to go with a singles run? Because I think New Day is getting close to being at the at the end of its run. Do they go with something with Kofi? We will see.
So SmackDown viewership this week was 2.03 million, up from last week's 1.84 million, which was a historic low. They're averaging around the 2 million mark so far this year, compared to around 2.35 last year and 2.54 in 2017. Same story as usual. The numbers are not good right now.
I'm just going to say this again because I'm getting really sick of the fact that Raw gets more viewers. Hashtag watch SmackDown. I'm going to start putting that on our Twitter and on my personal Twitter. Adam, are you going to do that as well?
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Yeah, start watching SmackDown. If you're listening to this podcast, start watching. It is only 2 hours. It's not 3 hours. It is booked better. There is great wrestling. And it's, on the whole, good every week. Hashtag watch SmackDown.
Speaking of good shows, we move on to NXT, which was awesome again this week. We opened with Dominik Dijakovic, which I will continue to screw up every time I try and say that.
Easy for you to say. Imagine being a ring announcer and having to say that all the time.
So he was fighting Shane Thorne in the opener. It was a short but fun opener. They worked well together, and Dijakovic was allowed to show more of his insane athleticism than he has been able to do so far. He picked up the win after moonsaulting out of an attempted move from Thorne, super kicked Thorne off the top rope, and hit a springboard tornado to the outside before hitting Feast Your Eyes for the pin and the win.
Yeah, super cool segment. Really good match. Showed off Dijakovic for what he is, and I look forward to seeing where they go with him. How good is he as a talker? Because in Ring of Honor, I didn't see that much of him.
He didn't talk a lot in Ring of Honor because obviously he was in the House of Truth with Truth Martini and stuff like that. I never really bought into his promos when he did talk, but he's been at the PC for a while. Hopefully that's something they've worked on.
Yeah, all I'm thinking is whether he's going to end up talking on his own or having someone to talk for him. But he's super athletic and super good.
Hey,
let's see where they go.
I'm always down for signing Truth Martini for any company.
Yeah, why is he not signed anywhere? He's one of the best managers in wrestling.
Yeah, totally agree. So we then had Undisputed Era cutting a promo saying that people are doubting them because of their slow start to the year. By the end of the year, they will be dripping in gold. Fish and O'Reilly are, interestingly, apparently the tag team again, as Roddy and Cole will both chase singles gold.
I mean, interesting. I mean, that kind of makes sense. Red Dragon are the better tag team. I know we've both said that we really loved Strong and O'Reilly's run, but Fish and O'Reilly and Red Dragon, they are a fantastic tag team, and Strong can chase something like the North American level, and then Cole can go for the NXT Championship.
So we got a recap of last week's main event and get shown an interview that took place after that match with Io and Kairi. Bianca butted in and said they better get behind her in line because she had Shayna beaten a takeover and she had her beaten in last week's main event. Also, she's undefeated. So I've heard.
Yeah, I think we're heading for a match here, aren't we, to decide the number one contender, and they're very clearly positioning Bianca as the heel of this story, and I think that was something that we kind of saw last week in that Io may have won, but Bianca certainly wasn't happy about it, so let's see where they go with this. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing that match, whether it's a straight up singles match between Io and Bianca, or whether Kairi's involved and it becomes a three-way. Either way, that'll be really interesting, and we'll see where they go with that.
So next up we had Humberto Carrillo and Stacey Irvin Jr. in the ring, but Cassius Ohno came out. Ohno hates everyone in the NXT universe. He's going to leave and prove he's the best elsewhere. He turns around and Keith Lee knocks him out. Lee picks up the mic and says, "Oh no." He tells Ohno not to let the door hit his ass on the way out. He apologises for the interruption and the Street Profits come out. They fist bump Lee and Ford imitates Ohno being knocked out. These guys just secrete charisma, and I mean everybody in this segment. Ohno, Lee, and the Street Profits, just charisma coming out of the pods, and Montez Ford's awesome.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed the segment. NXT segments are always great. I can't remember the last time I saw a bad episode of NXT. I really can't, but it was really interesting. I would assume Ohno's not actually leaving, right?
No, I believe that they're setting up him versus Lee.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I do still want to see Ohno in a tag team. I think Ohno being sort of the veteran leader of a heel tag team with maybe a younger heel from the PC or something like that would be really interesting. I think he'd be great in that role. And I say it quite a lot, but that's something that I would really like to see.
So we then got the Street Profits versus Humberto and Irvin Jr. The Street Profits are far more aggressive than usual in this match, with Ford even kicking Humberto during a handshake. Irvin looks good until Ford almost murders him with an absolute sick-looking high-angle back suplex. Even the Four Pillars cringed at that one. That's how high-angle it was. This was a fast-paced and fun tag team match. The Street Profits hit a blockbuster Doomsday device on Irvin for the win. The Street Profits cut a post-match promo stating their claim for a tag title shot and call out the War Raiders, but instead Bartel and Eichner interrupted them. They think they deserve the shot at War Raiders and tell the Street Profits to stand aside. This brings out Lorcan and Birch. The three teams bicker until we get the War Raiders entrance. They say there is an awful lot of talking and no fighting. The War Raiders head to the ring, but Undisputed Era attack them from behind. They roll them into the ring and bail as everyone brawls in the ring. The War Raiders stand tall when they toss Oney Lorcan onto all the other tag teams, while the Undisputed Era look on in horror from the stage. This was just great for building the tag division.
Yeah, fantastic booked segment. No complaints, and I can't wait to see who's going to face War Raiders. I'm really interested, and you know that I like Eichner and Bartel, so we'll see if they get a little bit of a push, because I was really impressed by them on, was it 3 weeks ago they were on?
Yeah, it was a few weeks ago, yeah, something like that.
I was really impressed by them, so I hope that they're going to be a permanent feature of the division moving forward.
We then got a Johnny Gargano video package, basically just highlighting his recent accomplishments.
Of which there are many, wins and championships.
Next up, we had Aaliyah versus Tainara Conti. Vanessa Bourne came out mid-match and got involved in the finish by grabbing Conti's foot while she was on the top rope. This allowed Aaliyah to lock in a Kimura, and with repeated kicks to the head for good measure, Conti tapped. it amazes me how little Aaliyah has actually improved in the sort of insane length of time she's actually been at the PC. And Tainara was fine, but again, she still feels super green. I don't know what they're doing with these women at the PC, or whether they just don't have the skill to bridge the gap, but they just don't seem to be improving.
This felt like one of those old NXT matches back when, Bayley and Sasha and Alexa were very, very young and very, very green. And it felt like one of those where you look at it and you're like, this is rough. Now, obviously, Alexa and Sasha and Bayley and Becky and all of those came on leaps and bounds.
No, Becky was already there, but yeah.
Yeah, fair point. But the rest of them came on a lot in a very short amount of time. Hopefully that can happen for these two, but you're right, this was rough.
Post-match, things got awesome as Shayna Baszler came to the ring. Bourne and Aaliyah bailed, but Duke and Shafir attacked them from behind and took them out. Shayna then destroyed Conti. She grabbed a mic and warned the rest of the roster not to piss them off.
Absolutely fine. Shayna's awesome. Anytime she's mean to anyone, I think that's really cool. So great heel. I like the group of the three of them as well. I really like that group, and we'll see where they go.
So we got a Velveteen Dream promo highlighting his Worlds Collide victory and him challenging Gargano for next week.
More than solid, and I'm really looking forward to see where that match goes.
Then it was time for our main event, which was Adam Cole versus Ricochet. They told a great story here, with Cole going for a top rope sunset flip early on in the match on Ricochet, but Ricochet held on until Cole let go and hit a super kick to the back of the knee, causing Ricochet to fall and get his leg tangled in the rope. The rest of the match was all about Cole working the leg and Ricochet trying to fight through the pain. Ricochet's selling was great. Occasionally his leg gave out, but more often than not he just sold it as he was doing moves or deliberately didn't use the leg in his moves. He hit a single-legged springboard swanton bomb, which was ugly, but that made sense as he had springboarded off one leg. Commentary were great here by showing that Ricochet's offense wasn't as smooth as usual due to his injury. Somewhere in here, Ricochet spiked Cole with a sick Poison Rana, and later Ricochet went for a Pele, but Cole sidestepped him and hit a lovely super kick to Ricochet, who was on all fours. Eventually, Ricochet hit a single-legged top rope Rana, an axe kick, suplex combo, and finally Vertigo for the win. This match was great, with great psychology, and Ricochet ended up looking like a star. Undisputed Era came straight out and laid Ricochet out. Aleister Black tried to make the save, but he was beaten down too, and Undisputed Era stood tall as we went off the air.
Yeah, this was really, first off, really good psychology, and it was a great match. I think it was always going to be a great match between two great wrestlers, but it was really interesting to see where they went with the finish. Obviously, Undisputed Era, continuing their slow start of the year. We're seeing where they're going with this, and it would appear to be interesting whether it's some kind of like losing streak for the whole of the group, and we'll see, where they try and build on that. Ricochet is a megastar. I really think he's going to be NXT champion probably before next year's takeover at Mania, I would expect. And this was really interesting, and we'll see where they go with this, because this clearly sets something up.
So with that, we'll move on to 205 Live, which was also a great show this week. Pretty much everything but Raw was a great show this week.
Everything but Raw usually is a great show every week. There's just maybe a couple of them have a bit of an off week, but like I said, #watch SmackDown.
So we opened the show with a video package highlighting the Noam Dar and Tony Nese feud. The Lucha House Party then opened the show and cut a cheap pop-heavy babyface promo. They say Grand Metalik will sing, but before you can start, Drew Gulak and Jack Gallagher came out, which led to Lince Dorado versus Jack Gallagher. Gulak was on commentary and actually uses the term young lion, which just blew my mind a little bit. He waxed lyrical about Humberto Carrillo. This was a decent match, although there wasn't much to it. Gallagher picked up the win after holding on when Dorado went for a Super Hurricane Rana all the way into a sunset flip type pinfall.
Absolutely fine. Really good start to the show. The only thing I'll say is that if Grand Metalik singing is going to be what 205 Live are going to put out, I'm going to start voting Drew Gulak for a better 205 Live.
So backstage, Kayla speaks to Humberto about Gulak and Gallagher's interest in him. Humberto says he is proud of his lucha heritage, but Gallagher and Gulak are tremendous performers and he'd be stupid not to see what they have to say.
Ooh, interesting. I wasn't expecting that.
We then had a promo from Arya Daivari, who delivered actually a really strong promo about being on his own now, not needing anyone, but needing the Cruiserweight Championship. It was good stuff. The black and white / colour effects they used here were different. I'm not sure whether I liked it, but I always like when they used different things, and just the fact that he was going from black and white to colour as he was speaking was just an interesting move.
Like we always say, whenever they do something that's different, we're big fans of it. And by and large, shows like NXT and 205 Live, the littler ones that, not littler in the case of NXT, but, smaller in terms of their prestige than the other shows, they tend to be the ones that are able to do this cutting edge stuff. And 205 Live's fantastic at that. More people need to watch 205 Live as well.
# watch 205 Live.
Absolutely.
Mike and Maria cut a promo, and Maria says that every loss is a part of the process. They've had success wherever they've been. You can lose a match, but eventually Mike will win the match and everyone will remember his name. It was what it was. It was a fine promo, delivered fine. The content was okay. I just have very little interest in Mike Bennett.
I'm the same. There was a few knowing looks from Maria to Mike throughout this promo that I did notice. I do like it when you say every loss is part of the process.
Joel Embiid.
I was thinking, is he Billy Bean or something like that? The Oakland A's.
We went in two very different directions there.
Yeah, we did. But yeah, like a fine promo. He's always been decent enough on the mic. I've always thought his mic work was his strength. But they're clearly building something between Maria and Mike here. Either some kind of rejuvenation of their characters, or maybe a split, which would be odd, but we'll see.
So next up, we had our main event of Tony Nese versus Noam Dar in a no disqualification match. I kind of said last week how I'm not into these two guys. They blew my socks off here. It was an awesome match. They really sold the story of how much these two hate each other by beating the holy hell out of each other, and not in a sense of we will use weapons and like really hardcore stuff and glass and all that kind of stuff.
Just aggression.
Just pure aggression. They looked like they wanted to kill each other. Dar's selling specifically of his midsection was really strong in the match. The finish came after Nese hit a chair shot to the midsection of Dar on the outside. He then hit Dar with a running knee, knocking him through the barricade into the timekeeper's area. He dragged Dar's lifeless body into the ring for the 3 count. The length of time between the move and pinfall made me think it wasn't the finish I was expecting, and it felt a little flat to me. But the more I think about it, the more I actually like the finish. And I think my reaction was just because of how I've been sort of mentally trained.
Conditioned to think of, move. 1, 2, 3. Not like, well, that was a massive move. No matter if he pins him in 10 seconds, that's still going to like really hurt him.
Yeah.
This was a really, really good match. By a mile, the best Noam Dar match I've ever seen.
Same.
I've always, and I think you and I have differed on this, I've never thought Dar was great in the ring, but I've always felt that he had great charisma in terms of his ability to carry himself. I'm not sure if I saw that in WWE, but in the British wrestling scene, particularly in Progress, he had this amazing ability to carry himself and stand like a star. But this was the best match he's had that I've ever seen. I actually would like to see more Noam Dar now if he's going to continue this.
And same for Tony Nese as well.
Yeah, and this was a great match.
They both brought it.
Yeah, so really, really good, and a great main event. Really great main event.
But before we went backstage to the contract signing for this weekend's Cruiserweight title match between Buddy Murphy and Akira Tozawa at Elimination Chamber. Tozawa signed, and then Murphy cut a promo saying Tozawa should take a selfie with the belt right now because that's the closest he's going to get to it. Murphy says he has no competition on 205 Live, and his only competition is with history as he continues his quest to become the greatest cruiserweight of all time. Tozawa says Murphy thinks he's unstoppable, but so did the king of the cruiserweights. And Tozawa beat him. It's his time now. The show closes as the two competitors face off. This was another great outing for 205 Live. Great main event, solid undercard, and really good promo work throughout.
205 Live's just fantastic. I love watching it every week, so great show again. And like we said, 205 Live's just solid every week. Every week it delivers, and it's only an hour. So again, if you're going to spend 3 hours of your week watching wrestling, cut out 3 hours of Monday Night Raw, watch 2 hours of SmackDown, and watch 1 hour of 205 Live, and you are set for the week.
And you can put in an hour of NXT as well, just for joys.
Absolutely.
So I think with that, we'll move on to any other business. And before we get into anything else, I didn't want to put this into the news, but I think we have to talk about the situation with Jimmy Uso. We don't know the full story yet, but apparently Naomi was driving in Michigan and drove the wrong way down a one-way street or something like that. And there's varying reports, but there was some kind of altercation between Uso and the police by all accounts. Obviously, like I said, the information is scant and it's different depending on who you listen to, so I don't want to go into too much detail. But this could pose a problem for WWE because he was obviously arrested and we don't know what the situation is.
Yeah, hopefully this ends up being nothing. But there's been loads of different reports, loads of different versions of what happened. Like the one that I've seen is that he squared up to a police officer, which is, a bad idea. Mm-hmm. But we'll see where this goes. Hopefully it's just nothing and we can sweep it under the rug. And hopefully he has really not done anything that much wrong. It's just been a heat of the moment kind of thing. But because we don't know what's going on, we can't really report this with any facts.
Yeah. And with that, I think we'll move on to the biggest thing in any other business this week, which is the new beginning in Osaka. Now, I don't know about you, Jonathan, but I've only had the chance to see the Ibushi segment and the top 3 matches so far.
Yep, I'm the same. I'm going to catch it probably through the next week or so, but I've not had much chance to catch most of the stuff.
So we'll just go through what I saw. Obviously, we talked about the Ibushi segment earlier, but he got a great reaction. That's the only other thing I've really got to add to that.
Yeah, Ibushi always gets a great reaction.
In terms of the matches I've seen, the first one I saw was Taiji Ishimori versus Raisuke Taguchi. Taguchi brought his working boots to this match. I loved the start because he played mind games. And have you seen this match?
I have not seen this match, but if it's Taguchi being Taguchi, like old Taguchi, yeah, I will love it.
You will love what he did before the match. He played mind games because he came out looking like Ishimori when he was in the Sailor Boys in his Toyamon days.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
it was
also,
great.
Everyone, if you've not seen Toyamon, you need to go check it out.
So this was a fun match. There was a great near fall when Taguchi hit the Dodon, which the crowd really bit into. But when he went for a second, Ishimori escaped and hit the bloody cross for the pin and the win. Taiji challenged Liger post-match, who accepted. That's awesome. I assume it's for the Madison Square Garden show match because that's their next big show outside of the New Japan Cup, and I can't imagine them defending the junior belt there, if I'm being honest. I think it'll be the MSG show.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is smart because I think Liger's probably the biggest junior star in the States.
Yeah, still, I agree. I mean, if Kushida was still there, they may have been able to go with Kushida, but Liger's such a famous name that I think it's a smart decision. It is interesting that he's going to get a shot because I thought years ago he'd had his last one when he faced, I believe it was Kushida, wasn't? Didn't Kushida challenge him?
Yeah,
I want to say it's like a respect thing.
That was 2 or 3 years ago now. That was
I think so, like a respect thing. But obviously, I thought that was Liger's last shot, but it looks like he's going to get another one. Part of me really would still love like a goodbye reign for Liger, but it won't happen. But you know what? It should still be a really good match because as old now as Liger is, he is still more than capable. Whenever I see him wrestle, he's still Jushin Thunder Liger. He's just a little bit slower and not as athletic as he used to be, but like he's still Liger. Like,
and at the age he is as well, it's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, he actually has no right to be as good as he still is. But don't expect the shooting star press.
So next up we had Kazuchika Okada versus Bad Luck Fale. Lots of interference in this one. It was fine, and it's a testament to Okada's skill that he always gets a decent match out of Fale, which is usually leaps and bounds above what anybody else can get out of Fale, apart from maybe Tanahashi. There was never any risk of Okada losing, so there was very little drama in the match, and he hit a couple of rainmakers to pick up the win. Better than I could have hoped, but still a disappointment in terms of the quality for a semi-main event of a New Japan show.
Okada can wrestle a broom. I think that's pretty much the news from this match.
So then we had the big one, the main event with Hiroshi Tanahashi defending the title he's just won at Wrestle Kingdom against Jay White.
The Switchblade.
This was clearly a Tana match, very much his pace and style. The legwork was awesome, and Tanahashi's selling in this match was absolutely amazing. There was a great sequence where Tana went for twist and shout, and they each reversed about 17 different moves back and forth before Tana finally went back to what he was going for originally and hit the twist and shout, and then hit it 2 more times just for effect. There was too much interference from Gedo for my liking, but overall this was a great match. Tana had the cloverleaf locked on, and when Jay got to the rope, Tana picked him up and hit the Styles Clash for a nice near fall. Tana went for a high fly floor to a standing White, but White caught him in midair and hit the Blade Runner for the pin, the win, and the championship. I wasn't hugely surprised. I know some are. I know some people are really upset about this. I thought it was a huge moment for White. He cut a nice promo post-match, ragging on the crowd and putting over his new era. And White will defend at Madison Square Garden versus the winner of the New Japan Cup. He also cut an even better promo, I thought, backstage after the show. And I know some people aren't into it. I don't think Jay White's in-ring quality is to the level of most of the rest of the New Japan top guys, but I think he's more than good enough, especially when in there with the right people, and I think it's important to build him because I think he could be a future star for them.
So first off, I'm going to talk a little bit about this in terms of New Japan tradition. This is very, very, very untraditional. You don't have a guy the level of Hiroshi Tanahashi lose in his V1 defense. It's just not done. Every single part of me, in terms of, because I've always said I'm a New Japan traditionalist, every part of me thinks that I should hate this, and yet I just don't. I think it's a really bold move from New Japan. There was reports last year that, you know, they were really happy that they'd made the star in Okada, but they wanted another young star. Clearly, Jay White is that star. We said this coming out of Wrestle Kingdom that he was obviously the star at the moment. He was going to be the star this year. They're going with him. They really are. And they're going to give him the chance to succeed. And you're right, he's not as good in the ring as, you know, Okada and Tana and Naito.
But how many people in the world actually are?
But at the same time, he's no slouch.
No, not at all.
And when he has matches, I remember when he had his first big match at Wrestle Kingdom. Was it against Tanahashi?
Yeah, last year.
And I remember saying to you at the time, like, he's got promise, but he needs to really expand his moveset, and because he had the psychology, but his match was just a bit dull because he didn't have the moves to sort of maybe as flashy as he could. But I really like this. I think run with it, and I think his promo after the match was great. You know, it cut off any possible good reaction he could have got for the shocking moment, and I am really interested to see how they're going to keep booking Jay White. I'm in massive support of it. I 100% I breathe with the Switchblade. I can't wait to see where they go with it.
Yeah, I thought this was really good. I didn't think it was quite as good as White's match with Okada at Wrestle Kingdom.
Agreed.
But I still thought it was really good and easily the best thing from the New Japan New Beginning shows.
Yeah, and it just continues this new. It's the new era, and we'll see. And I'm very excited for how it's going to go.
So the last couple of bits we've got to get to in terms of any other business all involve Ring of Honor. So at the last week's show, Mayu Iwatani became the new Women of Honor champion, and we also had some announcements in terms of the 17th anniversary show. We already knew that the Briscoes would be defending the tag titles against PCO and Brody King of Villain Enterprises, but we also have Kenny King versus Marty Scurll announced, and the main event of Jay Lethal defending his Ring of Honor World Championship against the leader of the Kingdom, Matt Taven. This is all what it should be, I think, for this card. It'll be interesting to see what they then do as the world title match for the Madison Square Garden show, because I kind of felt that's what they were building to for the MSG show. But we'll see where they go. Maybe Marty gets that shot. I don't know. But it's looking 17th anniversary shaping up to be a good show.
I think that's most likely, in that Marty should get that shot. Can you believe Ring of Honor's 17?
It's
it's going to be 17.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? I remember watching it back in the mid-2000s. And it being like a little baby company at that point. It's been around longer than most now.
Yeah, it's a little engine that could. And actually, on that point, I've been catching up on Ring of Honor TV because with so much been going on at the minute in work and everything, and trying to keep up with everything for this podcast, I've kind of let Ring of Honor TV slip a bit. So I took the chance the other day and I blasted through about 3 or 4 episodes on Honor Club, and everyone should go out of their way to see Bandito versus Mark Haskins. It was just 15 minutes of awesome. Honestly, really, really good match. It was from, I think, the February 1st episode or February 2nd, depending on where it aired, where you were. But absolutely awesome, and you should go out your way and see it.
Two good wrestlers having a good match. Who knew? The one thing I do want to ask, actually, because she adds to his act, but only if he's a heel usually, is Vicky with Haskins?
She's not been since he came over.
Right, interesting, just because obviously she does add to his act, and she did in Progress, but I think it's only because it was a heel thing at first. Now that he's turned babyface again, I just think it works because everyone knows, obviously they're a married couple, but I just want to ask, interesting.
So with that, we move on to our final segment this week, which will be the predictions for Elimination Chamber. Now,
this is going to be a rough show. That's my prediction.
You might be right on that one. But Jonathan is 1-0 up from his predictions at the Royal Rumble.
I am the current belt holder, or champion, or title holder.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how long that lasts. So, we'll go back and forth on this one. The first match we're going to mention is the Cruiserweight Championship match between Buddy Murphy and Akira Tozawa. Personally, I think Buddy's retaining on this one.
Totally agree. Buddy's returning. No one else is ready to take it yet.
Next up, we've got the Tag Team Championship match of McMiz, or the greatest tag team in the world, whatever you want to call them, against the Usos.
McMiz.
Yeah, I've got a feeling Miz and Shane retain here as well. Then we have Braun Strowman versus Baron Corbin. I've got a mini prediction before I go into my actual prediction. I predict that this will somehow be worse than the Women's Chamber match. That's my prediction. But also, I think Braun's winning.
I think Braun should win, but I wouldn't be shocked if something was done that would build towards Braun's match for Mania. But I will go with Braun. We need to differ at some point, don't we?
Yeah, we'll see how we go. So then we have Lashley and Lio Rush defending Lashley's IC title against Finn Balor. I fancy Balor for this one.
This is a tough one because I don't think Lashley should lose, but I think that's why Leo's there.
Possibly.
And then Lashley will then want his belt back at Mania. I think that's what they're going with. So I'll go with Balor specifically over Lio Rush.
And Ronda Rousey versus Ruby Riott.
Ronda.
Yeah, it's Ronda. We're both going Ronda. So with that, we then move on to the first of our two chamber matches. So we've got Nia and Tamina, Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan, Fire and Desire, The Iconics, Fabulous Glow, and Bayley and Sasha Banks. Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. I'm going to go with Bayley and Sasha. I'm not sure they're going to go down that route. I actually think maybe Bayley and Sasha win it at Mania, but I can't see who they're going to put the titles on for them to beat at Mania, so I'm just going to have to go for Bayley and Sasha.
I'm going to have to pick a different one here, because otherwise we are going to pick, I think, exactly the same all the way through, because I know who's winning the Elimination Chamber. I'm going to go with Samoan Slaughterhouse, Nia and Tamina. I have a horrible feeling that they're going to win. I have a really horrible feeling. They should put it on Bayley and Sasha. And if I'd had the first prediction, I'd have gone with Bayley and Sasha. But we can't do this competition and both pick the same things all the way through.
To be fair, I'm looking at it and I'm going, apart from Naomi and Carmella, I could see all 5 teams winning, all other 5 teams. I think they all have a chance.
The ones that I want to win, apart from Bayley and Sasha the most, and I think you're probably going to know because you know that I love them, the Iconics.
Yeah.
I think they're so great in their roles. I think they'd be nauseatingly irritating as tag champs, and it'd be great.
I love the Iconics in the same way you do in terms of their promos and stuff like that. I really rate them in that sense. I think they are nauseatingly annoying human beings, as you mentioned. But in the ring, they're not good. And I think for your first women's tag champions to not be great in the ring is not really the best.
True.
But we'll see. And the main event, I assume, of the show, the main event's going to be the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Championship.
You know what? I'd hope so, but at the same time, it really wouldn't shock me if they main evented with the tag titles.
It wouldn't shock me because it is a quote-unquote big moment.
It is.
But really, do you want to end the show with that? I don't think that's going to be a good match.
No, whereas this chamber has a chance of being one of the best chambers that there's ever been because everyone in there is a good worker. Everyone.
And I think we're going to go down the same route here. Daniel Bryan?
Daniel Bryan retains, yeah. And just, he's had a belt made for him. Don't make him drop it. The character's awesome. Just run with this. Run like the wind.
So I think that'll pretty much do it this week.
Can't believe I just said run like the wind.
I don't know what you were thinking. And with that said, I think we'll have to sign off for this week. Unless you've got any other random catchphrases you want to throw at me.
No, I think I should probably bow out with that one. So I think I've said me piece.
I'm sorry, we're out of time. We'll see you next week on the Two Man Booth.